Welcome to the Evolve to Succeed podcast. I am Warren Munson, the host of the podcast, where founders, entrepreneurs, business leaders and experts from a variety of sectors are interviewed to explore the link between personal and business success. In line with Evolve's principles, we also look at the importance of personal development, accountability and collaborative support in the pursuit of meaningful success. Through the insights of our guests, as well as my own business journey, the aim is to inspire you, the listener, to become better in life and in business. Welcome to this week's episode. Our guest today is an individual who I am in complete awe of, who recently achieved an extraordinary thing, sailing around the world unaided while at the same time competing with other skippers in a boat that was substantially older than all but one of the others out on those oceans with her. I'm of course talking about Pip Hare, who in February became only the 8th woman in history to finish the prestigious Vendée Globe round the world yacht race and the first British skipper to finish this year's edition. Together with her 60-foot yacht medallia, Pip covered the 24,365-mile challenge in an incredible 95 days, 11 hours and 37 minutes, finishing 19th overall. I'm proud to say that both Evolve and Inspire got on board early with her business syndicate, providing Pip with support, and both teams followed her progress throughout the race and celebrated in spirit when she finished. In the months leading up to her departure, Pip was a guest on this podcast and also spoke at an evening event at Evolve in pre-COVID times. Back then I was struck by her determination, fearlessness and quiet confidence, all characteristics that were fully on display during the course of the race itself. I wanted to get back to her and have another discussion with her on this podcast to hear about what she went through during the race and how it's changed her as an individual. As you listen to the podcast, there is so much that she says that relates to us as business leaders and the challenges that we face. But amongst other conversations today, Pip talks about her approach to anxiety and her approach to fear that helped her go faster.
I would literally have to go through every single point of anxiety, every single point of concern, and kind of talk it through with myself. Why are you worried about this? Why do you think this is going to break? And then just very logically apply logic to everything.
Takes us through the drama of having to repair a cracked rudder.
I kind of was prepared to sacrifice 12 hours of waiting just for a slither of a chance that I'd be able to do it, instead of losing, 5 days.
And reveals the unexpected challenge that proved to be the hardest to overcome.
I prepared for all of the technical problems. I prepared for the boat not to be working properly, but I hadn't prepared for me not to be working properly.
If you want to know more about Evolve and the services that we offer, then please do go to evolvemembers.com. But for now, let's get on with the show. Pip, welcome back to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
It was early October 2020 when we last spoke. You came in, we sat down, we had a discussion about your hopes and your dreams and your aspirations for the Vendée Globe, and we talked a lot then about the preparation. So it's great to have you back now to talk about what was the experience like and how you've evolved perhaps as an individual as a result. So 24,000 miles later, 95 days at sea, returned to the UK on the 18th of February. I suppose we should probably go back to right to the start line and the night before the race. What were your thoughts that were going through your head that night before the start?
I guess it was really strange. Like none of it felt very real. It didn't really feel real until I actually crossed the start line. And even then, I kind of almost was missing this sort of massive emotional surge that I thought I was going to have. And the night before, I just was very much, I think I felt like I wasn't, I felt the boat was ready, but I didn't feel that I was ready. I was really kind of trying to just tie up all the loose ends. There were loads of things that I wanted to have done to kind of finish things off. And so I was kind of battling a bit with where to just draw the line and say, right, enough is enough. You just got to,
Right.
you got to
This is
go
good
now.
enough. We're going to go. The start's
Yeah,
tomorrow. Off we go. And
exactly. Yeah.
and I know I've heard you speak about the pandemic and the effect not it necessarily had on your build up to the program, but the sort of the race village beforehand, not being able to have friends and family around. Was that having a profound effect on you at the time?
Yeah, I think it was quite difficult to put aside the disappointment around that.
Mm.
It was a really special moment for me, and I kind of was expecting that it would also be a special moment for many other people. My friends and family, but also all the people who'd supported me on the journey. It was kind of supposed to be a celebration for everyone. Um, and it wasn't. And the race village was closed. Um, we just didn't get that side of things, and although I always felt really, really honoured and grateful that we got to race. It was really hard to just put aside that disappointment of what
Mm.
should have been.
But I suppose you then step onto the boat off of the pontoon, and even the race was slightly delayed because of fog, wasn't it, on the start line? So that must have been added to the apprehension and all of those things. But starting gun goes. How does that moment really feel after all of those years of hopes, dreams, preparation to get to that, and you hear the start gun? I mean, how did that feel?
Oh, it was great. I was just so happy. I mean, so happy. It was kind of, I guess it was a permission to leave everything else behind. It kind of
Mm.
was almost like a switch being flicked, and it's kind of like, right, this is mine now. This is mine. And I very much from that moment, kind of made this pact with myself that I would make the most of every single second I had out
Mm.
there, because I was just so happy to be there.
Wow. And what were those first few days, first few weeks kind of like on the boat?
I mean, the first few days were, I was just kind of very much settling into it. I didn't know, I didn't know what to expect from my fellow competitors because,
Mm.
I hadn't had any time to spend with them, and I'd not raced against them that year. So in terms of performance, I had no idea where I was going to sit. I kind of benchmarked a bit, against people who I'd like to be with. And then, in the second, I think it was after the first 48 hours, we had some of the biggest wins of the whole race. So we sailed straight into a front. I saw 50 knots. That was a real test of me and of the boat because it was very, very, very rough. Um, and if anything, was going to break, it would have
Mm.
broken during that time. So that kind of was just a good assertion that we'd done everything we needed to. And then, quite quickly, in 2 weeks into the race, I was already, very much in the rhythm of things and
Mm.
already sort of changing and developing as a sailor. You quite quickly just immerse yourself into this environment, and it's actually nice how quickly I adapted.
And how did it, because you've obviously done transatlantic long distance races before, that's part of the preparation for this, but this is something new. And I don't know, is the longest race you've done before 5, 6 weeks at sea?
So the longest race was actually 28 days,
Right.
but the longest I've been at sea was 58 days.
Okay. So there'd been
Yeah.
a long stint, but mentally your mind must then have to adjust that, you're 3, 4 weeks in and you're coming to the point where this is, past the longest you've been at sea racing a boat. Did the mindset shift, or do you just get yourself into a kind of rhythm and a mentality and a sort of resilience that, you're just there and it's happening? I mean, how do you cope with that?
I didn't really think about time. I mean,
Okay.
I did wonder I wondered whether I would notice time, whether it would start to feel like a long time, whether time would start to be a problem for me. But I made a point of not counting time,
Okay.
or not recording time, because it's, I think it, for me, a more a better way of marking the passage of the race was actually through geography and weather systems.
Yeah.
Because kind of time is almost immaterial, because the time it takes you to cross an ocean depends on the weather. And so if you're looking for these kind of stepping stones, these milestones, then you're much better doing them with
Yeah.
geography than with time. And actually I didn't notice it. I mean, most of the time I had no idea how long I'd been out there for, because everything just kind of, it was, I guess it was just the passage of the sun, really. So
Yeah. Wow.
yeah.
At one with nature.
Yeah.
And did your expectations yourself change as the race went on?
um I I don't know that my expectations of myself changed, because I had always gone into it wanting to do the best I possibly could, wanting to know that by the end of the race, I could hold my head up and say, I did everything within my capabilities to, to put in the best performance that I could. But what did change was I guess, my understanding of those capabilities. So I went into it thinking that I should, and I should have been. The boat was 21 years old. It was the second oldest boat in the race. And when I went into it, I sort of thought I would be happy to be in the bottom five, really. There was one other boat, Alexia was in a boat very similar to mine. And I kind of thought, right, I'd like to be Alexia. And then I looked at the next ones up that were 2007 boats and thought, if I could be somewhere close to these boats, then that would be great. But by the middle of the Southern Ocean, I had 5 foiling boats behind me.
Yeah.
And so
wow.
I guess my competitiveness, or what I expected from myself, changed in so I was always putting in the same amount of effort, but where I expected to be with results changed, I think. Yeah.
And you talk about the Southern Ocean. That was one of the things that wasn't daunting. Well, it was daunting for you, but you didn't know what to expect. That was a place you hadn't sailed a boat before. So what was that experience like of sailing in the Southern Oceans?
It is incredible. It is one of the most incredible places on the planet, I'm sure. Just because it is the natural world without any filters, just absolutely pure. There's virtually nobody down there. There's no shipping or anything like that. The weather systems are unaltered by land masses largely. The waves are huge. It's a really raw environment. So it's incredible to be there. And I was nervous going into it because, it is where all the bad stuff happens generally. But it was a learning experience really for me. Each time a weather system came through, I pushed myself a little bit harder. I learned a bit more about the boat, about where my limits were, about, I was always looking for opportunities. I'd kind of review how I was in the last system, and then I'd look for opportunities to make gains in the next one. And so actually, because of the regularity in the way the weather system has come through, it was a great opportunity to learn and to stretch myself.
Wow, fantastic. And obviously, you must feel one with nature out on the boat, but particularly in the southern oceans, where I think the statistics are at one point you're closer to the International Space Station than
Yes.
anybody on Earth or something. It was one of the stats that I
Yeah.
heard. So,
Yeah.
so what was the most spectacular sight you saw? What when you look back now and just think about nature and what you saw?
I mean, I think that one of the things about, ocean sailing in particular, I think, is that, it's changing all the time, and it's an incredible place to be all the time. And I don't think there was any one thing that really blew me away. I mean, albatross in real life are incredible. Just seeing those is amazing. But also, just looking out at an ocean that is in full flight with a big breeze behind it, and but then equally, as I was coming into Cape Horn, we were quite far south, so it was very, very cold, and the squalls that were coming over there were blizzards, and so you're sailing and there's a massive inky black cloud with horizontal snow coming out of it that's settling over the boat. So it's all these, these things are just amazing. I mean, not that nice to be in at the time, but
nice to reflect back when you're in your warm home.
Exactly.
The central heating on.
Yeah.
And you talked just then about being in the Southern Ocean and constantly learning and trying to self-improve and get better as the next, weather front came through. What did you learn about yourself in terms of your ability to self-talk and motivate yourself? Did you take yourself to a level that you didn't expect before, even compared to the other challenges that you've undertaken?
I think I did. I think I'm a lot stronger than I thought I was, and a lot more pragmatic. I think, I've never been a person that gives up. I would not even say it's not a question of giving up easily. It's a question of giving up ever. I just don't give up. But I think what I found during the Vendée was actually that kind of manifested itself in my willingness to push myself and endure physical discomfort and mental fatigue, maybe more than my competitors. And kind of the more I saw that where that got me, the more willing I was to invest in that.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I think I just am a lot tougher than I thought I was.
Yeah, well, you're you're an incredibly tough individual, so that must be and must be extremely kind of. And does that become self-reassuring when you're out there? Do you then start to feel I can cope with this, I am coping with this, or did those thoughts never go through your head? You're just dealing with the moment as each weather front appears, and you're dealing with what you have to deal with every single day.
No, I mean, I did have to sort of coach myself into it, because it is frightening. It's frightening. And if you're not frightened by it, then you don't fully understand the magnitude of what you're doing. The frightening thing is, what if this breaks? Can I hear something going wrong? What if there's something in the water in front of me? What if the backstay block breaks? All of these things that are going through your head, and the further south you go, the further away from help you go, the more you push the boat. There's always this questioning in the back of your mind, what if? And so, each time I would push that little bit harder, and I could see that I was pushing harder than everyone else, and then there's something in your head going, well, is it you that's the fool here? Why are they not pushing as hard? And then I would literally have to go through every single point of anxiety, every single point of concern, and kind of all talk it through with myself. Why are you worried about this? Why do you think this is going to break? And then just very logically apply logic to everything. And if I ever came to the point where it's kind of like, okay, well, you're right to be concerned about this, then that would be the time to back off. But most of the time, by applying logic to all of my concerns, I gave myself permission to push harder.
So I'm just dumbfounded, I suppose. I just can't. At that time when you're tired, you're so tired, you're not sleeping, you're physically tired. The ability to take the emotion out of it and apply the logic, isn't it? It must be a unique skill that long distance sailors, ocean sailors have. Do you think?
I think we need to be very methodical in our approach to everything. Because, so for example, on the most basic level, doing a maneuver solo, so you have to break it down into its component parts, and then you have to execute all of those parts in the right order at the right pace. And so you're naturally used to breaking things down like that. And actually, when there is nobody there to support you, when there is nobody to bounce ideas off, what you tend to do is just keep breaking things down and breaking them down and breaking them down until you can deal with each of those component parts. And I think that definitely is a mindset that helps you overcome any problem at all, including, for me, definitely including sort of anxiety is how I dealt with that.
Because you've got systems, you've got processes, you're organised, and therefore that helps you to overcome that anxiety, as you say.
Yeah, and the fact is, if you bring emotion into it, then you can quite often just become paralysed. So you literally have to learn to package that emotion up, just literally wrap it up in a box and put it aside and put it somewhere, because it's not going to help you. And if you do feel, sometimes sometimes there is a need just to let some of that emotion out, just so that you can kind of just breathe out again. Yeah. And then literally I kind of just give myself 5 minutes for, I call it a pity party. 5 minutes to feel sorry for yourself, 5 minutes to let all of that emotion out. And actually, quite often it's so nonsensical that just letting it out, you kind of go, yeah, well, it's really not a problem, is it? And you move on. So
during the course of the race, obviously, there was a huge moment when you were undertaking a check on the boat and found a crack in the rudder. I mean, describe for our listeners how that felt, because that was such a profound moment, wasn't it? In terms of you were still in the Southern Ocean at this point.
Yeah, I was still in the Southern Ocean, and actually, I'd been really learning to push the boat. Sort of, this was after maybe 3 weeks of learning to push the boat, and I'd be incrementally creeping up on these foiling boats, which are kind of their next generation boats. So they should have been a long way ahead of me on the race course. And I was creeping up on them, and then I overtook them and got to about 200 miles ahead, and I played the weather really well. So I was about to jump on another system ahead of them, extend my lead. Yeah, everything was going right. Everything. I was so happy with my strategy, with the boat's performance. And then I found this crack in the rudder, and it was just beyond devastating. I mean, it was just so, everything that I'd fought for, this pathway I could see opening up in front of me, all of that was just over in a split second.
Wow.
And what was upsetting was not, I wasn't scared by the fact I had a crack in the rudder, because it wasn't great. It was a fairly serious situation, but I had a spare rudder on board. We had a good system in place for replacing it. I was fairly confident that I could make the change. Just what was devastating for me was the fact that I knew all of this performance was just gone. I was going to lose my lead, and that was the hardest thing to deal with. But I kind of, again, I kind of just address that. And then when it is that, when you are that remote, when there really is no other option, that is it. You just have to face up to it. You have to say, okay, I'm upset about this, but it has happened. This has happened. Nothing on this planet is ever going to change that. And the only way out of this is to positively make your repair, get yourself back on your feet, and go out fighting again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of just, it's so easy to do that because there isn't another choice.
Yeah. But so, and I suppose at that point, and it was one of the questions I wanted to ask you actually, your shore team become important to you, don't they? Because they start to talk you through what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And I suppose the Vendée is seen as a sort of, a solo endeavour, but you can't do what you do without a shore team, can you? And a team behind you supporting you. So how did you feel connected with the shore team?
Yeah, I'm sailing on my own, but it's definitely not a solo sport. The team are massively important, and I think the really important thing is in the build up. Then the team I need to work with them really closely. They need to work with the boat really closely, so that they can, I guess, they can almost imagine or understand implicitly, what I'm going through, so they can give me the best advice possible. But Geoff Brown, who's my technical director, he knew every inch of that boat, not as well as I did, but he knew it well enough to understand every single problem that I came against. In terms of my communication with them, we touched base every day, but I don't need to talk to people when I'm out there. I'm really happy not talking to people, but we have to be in contact because that enables them to know I'm okay, and it's just it's important for future planning. So if I think there's something slightly wrong, I can give them a warning. For even down to things like for my comms stuff. So when I was delivering media content and that sort of thing, I would look at the weather and tell my shore team, okay, I've got 2 days of really difficult weather, so I don't really want to do any interviews over the next 2 days. So just, there's a back and forwards of general life, but we pretty much did all of that via WhatsApp. So just text messaging, which is strange, I know.
It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. When you think about how technology comes into play.
Yeah. And then with the technical problems on the boat, I would, whether every time I saw a problem, whether I knew what the solution was or not, then I would share that problem with Geoff, tell him what I intended to do about it, and then he would either say, yes, that's a good idea, or try this, or something like that. And what was very useful actually with WhatsApp was I could send him photos and videos, and sometimes sound files too. And actually the crack in the rudder, Geoff spotted it, because I saw there was a problem because I did a walk around the deck and I noticed that the rudder stock had dropped. But I thought it was a problem with the bearing. So I sent Geoff a message. I said, the rudder stock's dropped. I think I need to lift it and tighten the bearing. And he said, yeah, do that. So I kind of set all of that up and then went below decks and found a piece that didn't quite look right. And I took a video of it. And I sent the video to Geoff and said, I think the bearing needs this, that, and the other. And he went very, very quiet. And then 20 minutes later, he sent me a screenshot back with a photo, a screenshot from my video with a piece on it ringed. And he said, is that a crack? And I went back down below and had a look, and it was a crack. And then, after that, we discussed how was I going to deal with this? What he wasn't allowed to do was give me any advice on when I should do it, because that's around the weather. So I had to make that decision myself.
Yeah.
But, you know, he sent me a drawing of how to set up the system with all the pulleys and everything. We talked through again and again. We talked through the process that I'd already practiced. You know, so there was kind of a lot of backwards and forwards between he and I in the build up to it. And then I got everything ready and I just did it. And he said for him that was terrible, because he kind of just, he was just left hanging for like an hour and a half.
Just
what's going on? Yeah.
Wow.
And then I just sent him a photo when I was done. So.
And was there a moment of elation when it was done, or just a moment of the job done?
No, I was really, because it was tense and it wasn't easy, and I ended up with 100 litres of water in the back of the boat, and you know, it was hard work. It really physically demanding. The conditions were not ideal. You know, I was worried about everything, and so the moment, you know, that rudder just came up into the boat and popped into place, I was just so super happy. But everyone was, because I had to tell the race committee what I was doing, and my competitors near me knew as well, because if something happened, they may have had to come to help me. So, you know, I was super happy when I'd finished it, and I sent messages to all the people I needed to, and they were all so happy. I mean, they were so amazed at how quickly I'd done it and where I'd done it. But everyone was happy. Yeah.
But that was your competitive spirit, I'd imagine, because I can remember, you know, there being, you know, following it on blogs and following it on the Vendée Globe channels, and you know, the commentators were saying, well, Pip's going to have to wait 2 or 3 days now for the weather fronts to really calm down, or the sea state to calm down. And then all of a sudden, I opened it up and it was like, Pip's changed the rudder. It was like, okay. So it's kind of, it must have been your competitive spirit thinking, right, I'm going to just get this done and get on with the race.
Yeah, I mean, I knew the conditions weren't ideal, but I thought I saw a window. And it was only, I mean, it really was a kind of like now or never moment. And so what I sort of said to myself and to Joff was, I'm going to prepare. I'm going to get everything ready. You know, everything will be assembled. All the ropes will be in place. We'll all be ready to go. And I will wait until this time. And if I don't find a suitable window by that time, then I'll put it all away again and I'll sail north for 3 days and find that window. But I kind of was prepared to sacrifice 12 hours of waiting just for a slither of a chance that I'd be able to do it, instead of losing, 5 days. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And I that moment, you get sailing again. You're firmly back in the race, and that wasn't your last challenge, though, was it? You soon got stung by jellyfish.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, challenge after challenge after challenge, and what happened.
I mean, it was just so unexpected. It wasn't something we'd planned for at all.
No.
I mean, we had some Portuguese man of war washed over the boat, just very, very small ones, literally about 2 centimeters long, probably, maybe 3. So really small. Right. Yeah. And it's not unusual in the Atlantic. It happens quite often. There are sort of big fields of them, and when waves wash over the boat, they just wash all of these little things on board, and they'd kind of washed through the boat, and I was finding a few of them tucked into halyard bags and this, that, and the other, and chucking them over the side, I must have been sort of 3 days after that. I moved some sails around the boat, and it was a really hot day, and I'd just been working quite hard. So I lay on top of a sail bag, and there was one of these little things just tucked into the fold of the material. And it stung me through my t-shirt on my back. I mean, who knew these things could be venomous after they'd been dried out for 3 days? And but I had quite a nasty reaction to it, so I got a massive blister on my back, and then that kind of turned into blisters over the rest of my body and hives, and then my face swelled up as well, and it was all aggravated by direct sunlight. It was pretty miserable.
As you're coming up through you're coming up into the warmest part of the race.
yeah, over the equator, it was pretty awful. Yeah.
So how did you have to adapt to cope with that?
So I mean, I think I dealt with it kind of largely like I would deal with a technical problem on the boat. Only so I had my Lou, who's my shoreside medic. She was kind of giving me the instructions there. We've got a really full-on medical kit on board, and I was having to take quite a cocktail of medication to try and treat it. And it is quite difficult. I had to take pictures, talk about how I was feeling, so that she and another doctor could remote diagnose me. And then they were having to pass their treatment plan through the race doctor, and then I would be allowed to open the big yellow box and get the treatment out. So there was that side of things, and we were all having to keep quite a tight control or understanding, recording what I was taking when, because especially with some of the analgesia that's a bit stronger, if you're on your own, you need to be very, very careful about what you're taking. But also I was having to regularly check in more than normal, just keep saying I'm okay.
I'm here.
And then I couldn't go outside during the day because there's no shelter from the sun at all, which meant that I had to stay down below during the day, which was awful because it was nearly 40 degrees down below and not a breath of ventilation. But I couldn't be in the direct sun. So during the day, I was trying to rest, but it was very, very, very hard because it was so hot. And then I would focus on sailing the boat at night time because it was cooler. It was quite nice having the cool breeze on my skin. So I was just doing what I had to during the day, but trying to make up on performance overnight.
Wow, crumbs. Would you have said that was the most challenging point of the race?
Yes, it was. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just because I never expected, I guess mentally I prepared for all of the technical problems. I prepared for the boat not to be working properly, but I hadn't prepared for me not to be working properly. And that was harder to deal with.
Yeah. And then as we start to sort of want to talk to you about what's happened since when you got back, but we got to talk about passing the finish line and completing the Vendée. So how did that feel? I think I've heard you talk about it. It was quite a concerning period up until the kind of finish line. There was lots of boats around, lots of things going on. What was it like?
It was very, very stressful for a number of reasons. I mean, for the whole race, for 3 months, my strategy had been not to sail upwind, not to sail anywhere there was lots of other traffic, and not to get close to the land. And so, in the last 12 hours of the race, I was doing exactly that. I ended up sailing into the most I saw was 30 knots, so nearly gale force winds. I was sailing directly into them, fishing boats everywhere, and I was making a landfall at night on a rocky coast. So it was kind of just this, everything, your natural seamanship, the things that you've been working towards for so long, you have to go against all of them. But also, I hadn't been looking after the boat in the same way for the last 2 days. So I'd had a couple of problems on the boat, a couple of breakages, which had I been in the middle of the ocean in a different part of the race, then I would have kind of sailed to somewhere that I could properly address those and fix them properly. But because I was being forced towards a point, racing towards a point, then I kind of did quick fixes on them because I knew they only had to last for, 36 hours. And even in the last 6 hours of the race, the ropes that were holding my keel, so my keel swings from side to side, and the ropes that were holding my keel in position broke. And so rather than kind of doing a proper fix on that, I did a quick fix, which just pinned my keel into the middle, which meant that I couldn't sail as fast as I wanted to. So it was kind of all of these things, just really, I was the most stressed I'd been in the whole race coming into that finish. I was so stressed that, I actually had terrible cramp in my stomach. And I wasn't sure that I would be able to be happy when I crossed the line because I was so stressed. And I didn't want to see a camera. I didn't want people to take photos of me because I kind of thought everyone was going to be expecting me to be so happy. And I didn't know if I could. But actually, it was really stressful until about a mile away from the line. My support boat came out. And they kind of stood off a bit. And then all of the race committee support boats came out in the middle of the night, all of these lights surrounding me. And then, you don't have a choice. There's a massive, big launch alongside you, just shining the biggest spotlight on you can possibly imagine. And it's kind of, well, I could go down below and hide or just kind of,
go with it.
Yeah. And actually, then you're like, well, what am I, what do they want me to do? Well, they want me to
hold
to raise, to raise my, and then you kind of, then it really hits you and you think, well, wow, I've done it.
Yeah.
I've done it. I have just raced single-handed around the world, and it was amazing. It was just the most amazing feeling. Incredible.
Yeah, I can only dream and imagine. But you are a self-professed introvert, Pip. So how have you dealt with all the attention since finishing the race? I mean, there was a point where you couldn't open a national paper or put the TV on, and there was Pip or on the radio, and for somebody that doesn't like all of that attention, how did you cope with that in the aftermath? When you return, you put your feet on the land. You've achieved this great achievement. You've spent your life setting out to achieve. And then everybody else who's putting demands on your time, Pip, how did that feel?
I mean, it is not, I don't think it's something that I'm ever going to be that comfortable with. But everyone was just so kind and so positive. And, I was really happy that my sport, which is a minority sport, was getting that sort of attention. And, I've learned that I'm comfortable speaking about my passion and actually, I've got confidence when I'm talking about the thing that I love. And I kind of really do want to share that with people. And so it makes it easier. And, I think one of the things that I've definitely learned about, all of the media requirements and this, that, and the other is that I'm really comfortable talking about my race, about, you know, how we all made it happen, about how it feels. And when people ask me questions that really are, you know, they show a genuine interest in the race, then I'm comfortable to answer them. But what I'm not comfortable with is stuff that I kind of like, well, why would anybody want to know that about me? You know, it's kind of the irrelevant stuff. It's like, you know, because in the rest of life, I'm just a completely normal person.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's fine as long as we don't step outside of sailing.
So if you stay within your passion and things that you're genuine about and you care about, and like you say, your sport and your achievements and the team that you've got around you, then then I suppose it becomes natural, doesn't it? Because you are passionate and you just want to start to share that.
Yeah.
When you look back now, did it take a while to actually sink in? Was there a moment when it really hit you that what you've actually achieved?
I mean, it comes and goes, to be honest. Because I think sometimes now it feels like I didn't do it. You know, it feels so far away. Because life returns to normal really, really quickly, really quickly. And I think that has been, you know, that's been a COVID thing as well, though, because you know, I got back to France, and although, you know, there was still a curfew there and the race village was closed, but I was still in this kind of environment that was celebrating what we'd done. The other boats were there. I got to see a few of the other skippers, and then, you know, I came back to the UK, and it was amazing coming back into Poole. It was so good and so unexpected. But then literally I just went straight into lockdown Britain. So I just went to my house and sat in my house and, you know, did the same as everyone else has been doing all over the winter. But I mean, that is such a stark contrast to all of the freedom that I'd had before, that, you know, it kind of quite quickly separates you from that experience.
Right. Wow. And what have you taken away from the experience and lessons learned that you're sort of applying in everyday life?
I think the biggest thing is just around perspective. You know, one of the big tools that I use to try and keep positive and keep remembering, you know, the bigger picture was this kind of zoom out thing. You know, and I would, every time I was really, really struggling, I would just kind of almost literally, you know, zoom out and view my boat and me in the middle of the ocean, and just you know, look back and think about everything that had gone into getting me there and why I was there, and you know, how much I owed to so many people to make the most of it, not least of which myself. And I was, you know, every time I would do that, you know, I knew I was happy to be there, and I knew it was the best experience of my life. And that kind of helped me get through the difficult moments in time. And I think, you know, to be able to do that with life on the land I think it's harder. It is harder because, you know, your direction on the land is less focused because there are There's
a lot more noise around you, isn't there? And distractions
But I think, you know, if I can take even some of that sort of that positivity, I suppose, of knowing that you're in the right place, doing the right thing, if I can take that away, then that definitely helped me on the land. Yeah.
Brilliant. And you did need to return medallion. You chartered the boat. And what was that feeling when you sailed it back across the channel and handed the boat back? 'Cause you must have it becomes much more than an object, and it just be something you adore and fell in love with. I mean, how did it feel to actually hand the boat back?
Oh, it was a whole mix of feelings, really. I mean, it was sad. It was, you know, the end of an era, and as you say, you know, that boat had been my whole life for 2.5 years. I mean, I knew every single part of that boat, and it had, given me, being able to charter that boat gave me the greatest of opportunities. And so, it was definitely, a poignant moment, but at the same time, there was kind of like a feeling of closing the circle, I guess. I had achieved against every one of my objectives. And I went back to the first day that I picked that boat up and thought about, the state it was in, and the fact that I had no idea how to sail it. And I was returning it, so, I guess the fact that I had achieved the Vendée and the boat was in good condition and I was returning it was just a nice feeling too.
And I love that sense you've completed the circle, and as you've completed that circle, a new opportunity, a new dawn kind of opens. And I suppose we should finish with that. So you've stated already that you want to compete in the Vendée Globe in 2024, but what is next for Pip?
I kind of knew before I'd even started this one that I wanted to do another one, because I just think something like this, your first one you're learning, the second one, you have so much more knowledge, you're in a better position to compete because you understand what the problem is. But even more so when I finished this race, it was one of the things. So many. Every single person I spoke to, actually every single person, including, all the people who've done, British sailors who've done Vendées already, said to me, oh, you'll finish the race and say never again, and then you'll forget, and then you'll sign up for another one. But I stepped off that boat going, that was the best 3 months of my life. I want to do it again. There was just no question, absolutely no question. But also I've learned so much, and it would be a shame not to take that to the next level. So I very purposefully, since I got back from the race, I have been working towards making that happen, because what I want the most over the next, it's 3.5 years now to the next Vendée, because time ticks on.
Eradicate time.
Yeah, and what I want the most is I invested everything in the boat this time, everything, because I had to. I'd like to invest something in me. I'd like to give myself more time to learn. I'd like to spend more time with coaches, do more on weather and strategy, give myself a bit more time to rest and all of those sorts of things. So I have been very, very, very focused on just trying to get this next one off the ground. And then, on top of that, I need to get my general fitness back up again, because spending 3 months at sea is not great for the body. And I just, like to, as soon as we are able, I'd like to spend a lot more time with my friends and family, because I've missed them. Yeah.
I can only imagine. Yeah. Brilliant, Pip. Pip, it's been great to know you over the last 18 months, 2 years, and, see you from bringing the boat, alongside at Paul Key, and you sharing your dream and your aspirations, and just being alongside you at times, and seeing how you've grown as an individual and how you've evolved and adapted, Pip, to be the person you are. And to see you now, having completed the Vendée, we're on kind of Squadcast, we're on the podcast recording software, but it's great to see you and to see you smiling and to know that you've achieved those dreams and aspirations. And I just wish you all the luck for the next Vendée and whatever you decide to do next, Pip.
Oh, well, thank you. And, thank you for being a part of this journey, because you were one of the first people that signed up as part of the business syndicate and, invested in me when there really wasn't a lot there. So, it's partly your success as well. So thank you.
It's been great just to be part of the journey, Pip. Thank you. What an inspiring individual. I think it's difficult for any of us to just try and start to imagine just how daunting a prospect it is to sail around the world on your own, to literally venture into the unknown and so often be so far from help should something go wrong. Pip is certainly one of the most courageous individuals I know, and I'm really proud that Evolve and Inspire helped her in just some small way on her journey to achieve the great things she did during the course of the Vendée Globe. During the interview, it occurred to me so much of what Pip had to say and her experiences during the Vendée Globe compared to starting, running and leading a business. There are those elements of taking risks, of having the confidence to go out on your own, the confidence in your own beliefs, and of building that resilience and using it to deal with the challenging times when they come. There was also the part where Pip said next time round she's going to invest more time in herself and take more time to rest and look after her own well-being in the build-up to the race. There are certainly takeaways here and comparisons to the way that a business owner hopefully at some point realises that to truly succeed, for all of that time and effort you put into creating a business and being at the helm and being a business leader, you need to take the time to care for yourself too, because it affects your performance in all aspects of life. And finally, I thought about what Pip said about being on the start line and still not feeling fully prepared. The truth is that you'll probably never feel fully prepared for anything, and the danger is that just waiting to be prepared only invokes the old enemy of procrastination. So for any of you listening who may be thinking about making a significant change in your business, or looking to start their own business, or just wanting to branch into something new, ask yourself, how ready do you feel? Is it 75 or 80%? If so, is it time to stop waiting for the extra 20%? Because in truth, it may never come. You've just got to get to step on board, begin the journey, and then adapt and deal with things as they come. I'm sure you, like I, are looking forward to hearing to the next stage of Pip's journey as she announces her next voyages, races and challenges in the months and years ahead. Thank you for listening, and if you do want to learn more about Evolve, then please do go to evolvemembers.com. You can register there for our weekly insights and newsletter, as well as learn about the services that we offer at Evolve, including our peer groups, one-to-one coaching, courses for teams, as well as our lovely co-working space in Ashley Cross and Poole. And if you are a business leader in Dorset and Hampshire, then I'm really excited to be able to say that through the Dorset LEP and the Solent LEP, we have some fully funded peer network and peer group programs that we can offer to you. So if you want to learn more, again, go to the website or please call the team. I really do hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if so, please help us by rating, reviewing and subscribing and listening to future episodes. Thank you for listening.